everybody, welcome back to Living Life MD. Today we're going to start holiday baking. So it is Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend. It's been a really busy week. Thursday I did a lot of cooking and we went down to our neighbors to have Thanksgiving lunch. And that was tons of fun. And as usual, I cooked way too much food, so I had to kind of figure out what I was going to do with all the leftovers. So you check out my Instagram page at livinglife_MD to see some of the things that I made with some of our leftovers. But today I wanted to start my holiday baking. So again, I tend to do a lot of baking, much more so than what my family can possibly eat or should eat, given that they are desserts. So I do tend to make cookies for my neighbors who do a lot of work where I live, keeping the roads plowed and kind of helping us make sure that we can get out safely. So I like to give them a little Christmas treat. So today we're actually going to be making a very special cookie to me. It's a ginger molasses cookie. It's a special cookie to me because it was my mother's favorite cookie. She passed away 11 years ago, and this was a season that she always loved. She also loved to make cookies, ginger molasses cookies, sugar cookies, different things like that for the holidays. And so this year I decided I want to make this cookie with you. So I'm going to make it the traditional way, which means it's not low carb. However, there are definitely ways to make it more low carb. And we can kind of go over those while we talk about things. So in making cookies and baking and all these different things, I know there's a lot of supposed rules that you have to follow. Mix your wet ingredients together first. Do this, that, or the other. I've really never found that makes much difference for me. So I kind of do it the way I want, depending on what it is I'm making. So one of the things that I make is when I have butter and sugar together, I like to kind of beat that together. So what I have here is I have 2 sticks of butter, softened, which I did soften in the microwave just to try to kind of help it. So I have that. So I'm just going to kind of mash it down with my spatula a little bit. And then I'm going to add 1.5 cups of sugar. Again, if you want to make this low carb, this certainly could be monk fruit sweetener like allulose. It could be like swerve or erythritol, or you can use any of the other alternative sweeteners. Since I'm trying to stay true to the recipe this time around because my neighbors aren't necessarily low carb, I'm going to use real white sugar. So pour it all in. And then you just do what we call creaming it together. So it's just a matter of kind of moving the butter and sugar around, kind of just to incorporate it. And this will take a few minutes. And as it kind of comes together, it's just sort of not a crumbly consistency, but it definitely looks kind of crumbly as you beat this together. So I'll kind of show you what it looks like a little bit. You can still kind of mash it, but you can see it's not completely like a dough. Okay, and then once that's done, you can do it a couple of different ways. I'm going to add about a teaspoon of vanilla. And that is vanilla extract, and 1 egg. Okay, and then again, we're just going to kind of mix that in. And this is where it looks a little bit more creamy. It's coming together a little bit more, acting more like a dough. And once that's incorporated in, I go ahead and I'll put in some of the rest of my ingredients. So this is about 2 tablespoons of baking soda, about a half a teaspoon of, 2 tablespoons of baking powder. Woo, don't put too much baking soda in. 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of ground ginger, and then I also added a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon and nutmeg. You could add more nutmeg and cinnamon. You could also add cloves, however you like your cookie flavored, but this is kind of traditionally what we had. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. We're going to mix that in together. Just give it a good stir, making sure it's just well incorporated. Okay. All right. Now, at this point, you can do it a couple of different ways. You can add in your molasses and then the flour. I like to do it a little bit at a time, kind of doing each. So what I have here is about 3 cups of flour and a little bit more for dusting. So I'm going to just put in a little bit of flour because I really don't want to make it too dry to where it's too hard to stir. But I do want it to start seeing it more of a consistency of a cookie kind of dough. Now, if you want to make this really low carb, of course you could use things like almond flour. I think for baking, most people would do a combination of almond flour and coconut flour mixed together. It kind of creates, I think, a little bit more taste and texture that you would want in like a cake or a cookie or something like that, but you can certainly do that. If you don't mind the fact that it won't taste exactly like molasses, you could use a keto alternative like maple syrup. There are some keto alternatives out there called like sucrin maple syrup, which is a keto alternative to maple syrup. So it'd have more of a mapley taste than molasses. And there's probably other alternatives that you can use. This is just organic dark molasses. Definitely not keto. And it's about 1 cup. So to start, and it always makes a mess. That's okay, because I can clean it up later. Put about half the cup in, and I'm going to stir it. And again, this is just because I really just want to try to incorporate everything in really well. So a really good stir at this point. It's definitely getting to be more dough-like. Definitely getting to be something that is a little harder to stir. You want to make sure you get that molasses in there really good. Okay, and now we're just going to alternate a little bit more flour. And again, you can mix this together however you want. If you're not a really big fan of doing the stirring on your own, you could certainly use a stand mixer. Sometimes I like to do that. Today I felt like I was okay to mix. But now I'm kind of regretting it, just a little bit. Okay. So kind of give you a look at it. It's almost like the consistency, maybe a little thicker than a frosting. Okay. I'll go ahead and put in a little bit more flour. Give this a stir. Try to do it carefully because I don't want my flour just shooting up everywhere. So we got our Christmas decorations put up this weekend too, which is really exciting. My husband loves Christmas. He loves putting up Christmas decorations. He'd leave them up all year round if I'd let him, which I don't. So we were able to get that done. And we've been able to spend a lot of nice family time together this weekend, which is good. We've managed to all stay healthy so far. And in the height of what it looks to be a pretty good flu and RSV season, I'm really glad that we've done what we need to do to try to stay healthy. So now, despite the mess I've made on my kitchen counter, I'm going to go ahead and put in the rest of my molasses. So the other half a cup. It's really thick and there. Giving that a stir in there. Ooh, now it's definitely a lot harder to stir. So, oh man, it's going to be worth it in the end, I promise. And I'll have a stronger hand for it. Okay, I'm going to pour in the rest of the flour that I need to pour in. I'm saving a little bit for dusting, just to make sure that my hands stay as sticky free as possible. And with baking, I think the thing is you can't be afraid to get a little messy. whether it's cookies or cakes or bread especially, you know, you really want to be able to knead your bread and make it come together. So it's the same here. I'm just kind of feeling it, kind of testing it a little bit. I'm going to get messy anyway because I have to roll the cookies. So you can do this one of two ways. A lot of people will try to like roll it up into a log and then cut the cookies. I've never been a fan of that. My mother was never a fan of it. We always just put a little in our hand, rolled it up in a ball, and stuck it on the cookie sheet. So it looks like I've got everything kind of mixed in pretty well. Okay. So now here comes the time to put it on a cookie sheet. So I'll be honest with you, I'm not Martha Stewart. So I don't have these fancy little cookie sheets. My cookie sheets are really old. They are really beat up. And I actually find that I use pizza pan sheets way more often. I go ahead and because my pizza pans are also old, I put down a little foil. You don't have to do that if you have cookie sheets that look great. It should be ungreased. And you just put a little dough in your hand, the size you want the cookie to be, and you put it on the cookie sheet. And we're just going to keep doing this. I'm not going to put too many on the pan for the purposes of this video. I really just kind of want to have you guys get a feel for what I do. And so far my hands aren't too terribly sticky, which is good. Okay, I'm just going to put 2 more cookies on there. The other thing you can do with this, that sometimes my mom did, of course you can push it down a little bit so it flattens out as a cookie. You can do that with your fingers. You could also take a fork and just kind of make designs in the cookies. Sometimes my mom did that. You could, even if you really wanted to, you could roll it out a little bit with some flour on your counter and put it down there and kind of roll it out a little bit. You can make gingerbread men. So certainly you can make shapes. You don't have to make them round cookies. I will probably do sugar cookies later in the week, and I'll do little gingerbread men and Christmas trees and stuff with that. But for now, I just kind of want to do this. Okay. So even though my hands are kind of messy right now, we're going to take a cookie sheet. I've preheated my oven to 350. And then it's 250 right now, and it takes about 15 minutes. So at 305, our first set of cookies will be done. And then while you're waiting, I always just went ahead and made a second tray. That way, when those cookies were ready to come out, another set was ready to go in until I have used up all my cookie dough. So give us a few minutes and we'll be back in about 15. We'll see you then. Okay, we're back. It's been 15 minutes, so hopefully the cookies are done. Let's take a look. Oh, wow. So as you can see, they expanded in size. They're a little soft, but we're gonna wait for just 1 minute to see if they kind of firm up a little. Then we'll transfer them to a parchment paper that I have on the counter ready to go. In the meantime, I just thought I would share these cute little Christmas tins that I found at Hobby Lobby. So I will be serving cookies to our neighbors in these tins. And as you can see, I've washed my hands of all the sticky molasses and cookie dough. But I want to also remind everybody in RSV and influenza season, and as with always COVID, make sure that you use good hand washing. Really, really important tip to keep yourself safe and healthy and your family safe and healthy. And don't forget when you sneeze or cough to do so in your arm. That's the best way to kind of control the spread of nasal droplets and throat droplets into the air. And I just think that's really important. We have to remember these things this year. We want to try and stay as healthy as we can. And then I also wanted to put a plug in for my next video coming up. We're going to make a, and I do not know if I'm pronouncing this right, so, but from the boot tip of Italy, I think it's called Calabria. I have some Calabrian hot peppers, and we're going to make a tomato vodka sauce with the peppers. I find that it goes really, really well with meatballs. You can of course do it with pasta. You can pair it with some vegetables, other meats like chicken. It doesn't necessarily have to be a pasta dish, which again is more high carb. You can kind of pair it with meats and vegetables along with it. But it's a terrific sauce. Just the right amount of spice. You can add cheese to it, Parmesan, mozzarella, and it just turns out delightful. So it's been about a minute, so I'm just going to try at least one cookie. Feels like they firmed up pretty well. They have, which is great. A couple of them ran together. No big deal. If that happens, you just separate them and move them apart. Wow. They smell really good too. Reminds me of my childhood with my mom. And depending on how big your cookies are, you'll probably get at least 18 cookies. I like my cookies a little bit bigger. So there's 9 cookies here. I've got 9 more cookies ready to go into the oven, and I still have some dough left over. So you're probably going to get 18 to 24 cookies out of it, bigger cookies. You could probably get 40 cookies or so if you use really, really small cookies, but okay. So here it comes. This is for real. This is the taste test. Breaks apart nice. It's nice and done in the center. Don't know if you can see that since it's such a dark cookie. Yeah, I think my mom would be proud this year. Okay, so I'll eat the rest of the cookie later. So that's how you make ginger molasses cookies. Again, there are low carb alternatives that you could use to make it a lower carb cookie. But with holidays coming up, I do a lot of baking, so you'll probably be seeing a lot of baking videos. However, if you find that you have a question about a medical condition, please let me know. I'm happy to go over anything. I still want to do a top 5 things you need to know about influenza. I may combine that with a cooking video, you never know. And if you like this video, please hit like. If you would love to subscribe to my channel, I certainly would love it. Hit subscribe, and we will definitely talk to you next time. Thanks so much for joining me. See you later.